Alright, so today we are going to talk about networking trends using Google. And this is really interesting, just interesting part of the lecture. First of all, what is Google Trends and how do we apply to that the topic that we are interested in ourselves? And so the way I find out about the current trends, and I have to do this every year, I have to find out what is hot today, this year, and this month and this semester and everything else. Because that is how you keep leading the world. You keep in the leading edge of the world. Is that you go through several places. The first thing I do is, actually that is the next slide. The first thing I do is so I have to find out what is the current trend. So for example, current trends are big data. And big data also means no privacy. Every movement of yours is being recorded. You go to the store, it's recorded. You pick up something, it is recorded. You buy something, it is recorded. You return something, it is recorded. Whether it is on the internet or whether in a store. Alright, they have complete life history. They know more about you than you do. Alright, so that is the thing. Now, basically now there are applications that will do with big data. Is that you walk into the store, even before you order, they see your face and they say, okay, Mr. Jain, how are you? And do you want a cup of coffee or a cappuccino or whatever you ordered last time, they already know all that. Okay? So you don't have to order, and in fact there are credit cards that can be charged because, you have given them permission for that probably, or something like that, that they know that this was the card you used last time or something like that. So everything is going to be automated like that. Right? Second thing is information fog versus information fountain. In my days, when I was a student, it was a fountain. You go to one source and get the information. Right? The source was IEEE or some other, magazine or a journal. Today, you don't go to IEEE. You go to IEEE, you went through this while doing the homework. But generally, the source information is coming from all these sources. From the companies, from people, from students and from professors and everybody else. Everybody is writing blogs. Everybody is writing information. And so what we have is what we call information fog. And so we have to have information which is coming from people rather than news media. Today you want to get the latest news, you don't go to Times or anything like that. You go to YouTube where somebody has uploaded something today. Right? So this is the news is coming from people. Third thing which is happening is 3D printing. I don't know how many of you have seen 3D printing, but they are very hot item right now. Can be had for $1,500 and you can make anything you want. People make guns. People can make, you have heard this news that, you can make a gun with a 3D printer, right? And anything you want to make, you can make. And so the people are saying that the toys of the future will not be manufactured. They will be made by kids themselves. Whatever they want to make, they just put the design in there, right? Body area networking computing, and we already talked about that there is computers all over, computers in the glasses. You saw the Google glasses, but people are also working on computers inside your body. You just eat some medicine and that has a microchip in it, and then it transmits all the information that the doctor needs, right? Body area networking and self-driving cars. You have heard about the Google cars, but last week the announcement was that one of these companies, I think it was Ford or somebody, I may be wrong about the company name, announced that they are manufacturing it. All right. So anyway, so how do you find out about all these trends? Well, in basically several places. If you are a professional like me, then you go to IEEE, IETF, or ITU. And this is what I used to do. Every year I will make one visit to IEEE meetings, one visit to IETF meeting, and if possible to ITU. ITU is closed. The other two are open. Anybody can walk in, pay $800, and you are in. For ITU, you have to be, ITU is International Telecommunication Union, and therefore you have to be somehow related to some government or some big company or something like that. So for a person like me, it's not possible. So, but the thing is, the reason I go there is to find out what is going on, what are they working on, and that is the latest thing. Another thing you look is NSF. You are a professor, you generally look at what is NSF funding this year, and every year they have a new area coming in, and that is the area that you want to be in, right? Venture capitalist. If you want to get a startup, if you are thinking of starting a company, then where you look up? You look up at the venture capitalist. You look at the VCs. What are they investing in? And there is, you go to the website and they tell you what they are investing in, right? But what the VCs do the same thing. They go to other VCs and see what are they funding. And if one VC funds something, other VCs will just line up behind them. And so they have a big herd mentality because they are not technical people. They are just, basically financial people. So how they find out what is happening in the technology? They think somebody else knows it. And so the top VCs, whatever they invest in, the bottom VCs and the medium VCs, they will all invest in the same thing. That's why that herd mentality. They are like a sheep herd. Energy analytics company. And then you go to, if you are a big company like Cisco or HP, where do you go to find the trends? You buy a Gartner report. Right? And the Gartner reports come for $4,000 or $5,000. You can buy them on Google too, it looks like. But they're several $1,000s, so you never get to that part of the Google, of the Amazon search. And and so that is the place where Cisco and other companies go. But I found out that Google search is also a good indication of the of the trends. And so, for example, last time I showed you this graph of Gartner hype cycle, and it was interesting that when I did my own search last week, that these topics came up exactly the same place on Google as well. So you find out how many people searched for big data, how many people searched for cloud computing. It was so amazing to me that Google search gives you the same information. And that's why I prepared this lecture. So what is Google Trends? Google actually has a place where you can go and you ask how many people have searched for this term for how long, for over a period of time. So you can get the whole graph of time versus this is the time and this is how many people searched for this. So I have taken an example of Barack Obama. Okay, so you can see that not many people knew him before, but there was a peak of people who wanted to know about him in what, November 2008? Why? You all know that, right? And basically he was elected as a president, and so everybody wants to know all over the world. And so that is the peak. Now interesting thing is that Google not only tells you where the peak is, it tells you why or what happened in that time. So they have A, B, C, D marked. So this is really good. So it tells you what happened, what event news happened that day related to Barack Obama. So you can figure out that. Then it also tells you where in the world they came from. Right? So some areas are dark, some areas are light. You can see that most people from Africa were very interested. Of all places. And this is really surprising to me that so many people from Africa are interested in finding out who Barack Obama is as compared to China or Russia or something like that. That is all blank. Right? Of course, US is interested and so on and so forth. Right? So this is very interesting. So this is actually led me to think that we should all know about Google Trends, and then let's try what happens to our terms. So first term I searched is data center network. All right? And you can see that from 2004 to 2013, it's just hovering around at the same place. By the way, this graph is all the graphs that you will see, and all the Google Trend graphs are all scaled to 100%. 100 is the maximum. All right? So wherever the maximum was, it's almost the same. So it has not gone down or up. This is something that is continuing. All right? And where are people interested in it? This, by the way, the whole thing is USA. This is Alaska, is part of the USA. So that is USA and then India. Period. So what is happening in the rest of the world? They're not interested in data center. I don't know. But this was something that I found time after time after time, that there's a lot of correlation between India and USA. And I could only come up with this explanation that maybe all the people who are working in IT in India, they're working for USA actually. They are working for the US companies. So whatever is happening in the United States, they are working over there and trying to find out what's happening in software-defined networking, what's happening in this and that. So this is a direct relationship between the two countries. So here it is. You can see that rest of the rest of the things are kind of blank except for those two, data center networking. And then I moved on to network virtualization. So nobody looked up network virtualization before this time, which is 2005 or 6, but now the interest is growing. Okay, interest is growing, which is a good sign, because you really want to be, remember that hype cycle? You really want to be on the left of that hype cycle. On the right of the hype cycle, interest is decreasing, and when it is flat, that means it has become an everyday thing, and it's really, I mean, it's a common thing. All right? So you want to be on the left, and I want to make sure that you are in the class, right? Okay, so on the left side, so this looks like left, right? And again, this is the same two countries show up, and it's quite possible that this data is biased, that Google doesn't go to other countries, but I would be really surprised if people in Europe don't use Google. But I saw several areas where China is hot, so I will show you this one in a minute. It's coming up. Virtualization. So then I looked up the word virtualization, which is different than network virtualization. Right? Virtualization includes server virtualization, storage virtualization, network virtualization, and all of them are plotted by the way. You can plot multiple things on the same graph. So this is virtualization. This yellow thing. So the first blue thing is network virtualization, which you cannot even see. Blue thing is in the like x-axis right there. The second one is red thing, which is virtualization, which is big, as you can see in this bar chart, as well as you can see in this time chart. Server virtualization is little bit yellowish, this one, which is significant interest back in 2000 and still, kind of, either gone down or, done. So server virtualization, if you have seen in itself, a graph by itself, it will look big and you will see all the trends. But here, because it is dwarfed by this whole virtualization thing, it looks very small. But the idea is server virtualization is kind of done thing. All right? Sorry, storage virtualization. I meant the yellow curve. And then the server, which one was server? Server was yellow, storage was green. Okay, sorry, so server virtualization. And then, so really, these things are just starting. In that case, if I have to correct myself, basically the storage and network is starting. They are just basically not there that much. Server has been quite a bit over the period of time. Yeah. What is storage virtualization? Actually, ST is missing in that, somehow in that capture. STORAGE. Storage.
Oh, I mean the green line.
Green line is storage virtualization.
Oh,
cut off by Google. Basically, they have fixed size there and couldn't put all the words. Storage virtualization. The next one is server virtualization, and so on and so forth, right? Okay? Yeah. All right. And you can see that there is some interest in some European countries here. And by the way, these graphs are very interesting because you can just check on those points and they will tell you what country that is. Okay? So that is good. All right. Next is SDN, software defined networking. Now, software defined networking started in 2011 kind of things, right? And it's still building up. Right? This is something that is very new and hot. And what happened on that day, actually? So if you look at the day it was announced, this started is May 21st, 2011. Open Networking Foundation was formed. ONF was formed. Then when the SDN came out into the real world, and everybody is now curious. By the way, I was in that meeting, and I also heard about SDN there, and I also got influenced, and I also started research in that topic. So basically these things are they just feed into each other. And software defined networking, by the way, you can look up different words and it will give you a different number of searches, obviously. Some people search for software defined networking, some people search for software defined network, some people search for SDN. And so you really have to search for all variations. Google does give you answer depending. If you search for SDN, it will probably give you answer for all three, but I think it keeps a separate count of how many people look for SDN. All right. So Google. So that basically is SDN. OpenFlow. So OpenFlow is another hot topic which is part of SDN. We will talk about that when we go to the SDN lecture. That started much earlier. Okay. That started around 2004, and maybe it looks like 2004 is the time when Google started keeping statistics, so nothing starts before that. But it's still going up and then came down recently. Okay, past the peak. And the peak was at the Open Networking Summit last year. So basically, and I was at that meeting too, ONS April 2012, I was at April 2013 as well. So April 2012, people started basically discussing SDN in more general terms than OpenFlow. So OpenFlow has now, is decreasing. But look at the curve here. This little thing is hot, and that is Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. Okay, Japan, Korea, and Taiwan have interest, and China is hot too. Here, you see this graph. China is very much interested in SDN. And of course, one thing which I can't understand is where is Europe in all this? I mean, there is more interest in Africa in SDN than in Europe. All right. Then I went to cloud computing, and cloud computing, you see, just like in the Gartner graph, cloud computing is past the peak, way down there. And the searches are exactly following that thing, and mostly interested in India, but there's no interest in USA left. That much interest left in USA. In USA, it is a commodity. There are hundreds of cloud companies, and so I mean, the cloud is become everyday thing. And when we go to the cloud lecture, you will notice that you use cloud 100 times a day. Everything that you do today is on the cloud. So it has become commodity. It's not really hot in here, right? But all those services are provided by these IT companies in India, so that's why it is still hot there. And interestingly enough, I see some hot spots in Africa. Okay, but moving on to big data. Big data is hot, and it suddenly the knee started here at G. You know what happened on G? Obama announced the big data plan. All right, everybody got onto that. Basically, NSF got onto that. Universities got onto that. Everybody in NSF started funding. Once NSF started funding, then obviously, what are we going to do? We are going to do research on big data, right? We are going to go to Google and start looking. And so basically, that is the point when the thing started, and that G point is March 27, 2012, just a year and a half ago, 15 months ago. All right, interest in India, USA, of course, but now I see Canada on the map. This is all Canada. So at least Canada is working. Some interest in Australia, and I see some South American country here. Obviously, there is some in Brazil. So basically, you can start seeing where the people are interested in what topic, right? And some interest in Australia, Russia, Brazil, Canada, China, South Africa. So that was South Africa, yes, sorry. This was South Africa and China and all that. Internet of Things. Internet of Things is still before the knee, long way to go, it's still going up, right? So as in the Gartner's graph, high interest in China, India, USA, and here is China. Here is a picture of China. So this thing is, this is India and there is China, very blue.
This is one thing which started in Europe, and it's very, very hot in Europe. But I think Europe is too small to make any.
Yeah, I was thinking Internet of Things started in Europe.
Yeah, it is very hot in Europe still.
Yeah, but it is only hot in the research community. Maybe I don't know why it is. Huh?
Europe is too small to come up in this. I mean, it's like every Indian becomes the most,
population of India. See, that's maybe very densely populated. But anyway, so the thing is, China is very blue, Australia is blue. Of course, you can see Russia and Canada is there, and then little bit of Europe. And so that is where the IoT is people are interested in, right? So anyway, to summarize this, Google Trend is an interesting way to find out world's interest on a topic of your research interest. So whatever you are working on, you want to work on something that is of interest and future interest to people. And the way you find out very cheap, very free, and basically free is by Google Trends. And Gartner Hype Cycle, and what was surprising to me was that the Gartner Hype Cycle matched the trends, and in fact the standard activities were matched the Google search. Everything matched the Google search so much. So the question is, who looks at whom? Does the Google look at Gartner, or people look at Gartner and go to Google, or people go to Google and then Gartner goes there too? I think it is basically, if you are writing a report, you will start with Google Trends first. Right? And find out if there is interest in cloud computing or interest in this and interest in that. So you don't have to pay $5,000 to get that information, which you can get for free. That was the interesting part. Then also, third thing you can verify now from two sources, that big data is at the peak, cloud is mainstream, network virtualization, SDN and IoT are just beginning. So they are all on the left side of the graph, the peak. All right? All forecasts. Now, there's one point which I wanted to make, which is really the point I make whenever I talk about the trends at many places, and I would have a whole presentation on that, but all of this forecasting doesn't matter. Because all the forecasting is based upon the past. Right? And the future is not decided by the past. Real future is decided by the breakthroughs. Apple iPhone was a breakthrough. Right? Amazon's cloud was a breakthrough. Before that, none of these companies, Gartner or Google or anybody else, could have predicted how much interest there will be in these things. Right? So the future actually is not continuous. The predictions are all continuous. You understand the point? That when you predict that it's going up and will go up, this is the past. But the future can just take a jump on something else which will come up, and then suddenly everything else will be down. All right? So basically the real thing that you want to work on is that thing, which nobody has thought about. So how do you think about it? I don't know either. Go ahead.